I believe that the whole world is permeated with minds. Mm-hmm. There are little minds out there like ours in everything, in the wood, in the plants, and in you. And the first use of this tool would be telepathy, where you and I could merge minds. Okay. Because merging minds with, even dogs might be really peculiar. So we practice by merging with people, and then work up to merging with chlorophyll.
So the Spock mind meld kind of vision. Okay. And
there are indications in quantum theory that this is possible. The notion that wave functions don't have a clear separation. The first thing you do when you make a measurement is you make a clear separation between me and it. You do it theoretically, but there is no separation really. The waves, my waves and its waves, are already connected. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So this would be exploiting that necessary connection.
How close have you come to actually experiencing that?
Well, closest is on drugs, of course, but something like that. But see, the thing about drugs is they're not very reproducible. Each chip is separate. This would be a more controllable kind of thing, a lot more like a telescope. So that's what I'd be looking for.
Something more controllable than psychedelics.
Yes. Yeah, you can kind of dial in the level.
You can't have telepathic experiences in psychedelics. It's not as refined as you might have with.
Not as predictable. It's always a surprise.
Yeah,
and that's fine. I mean, those are great for psychedelic experiences. Are great for exploring.
So we'll have something as reliable as the iPhone.
Yes. But I'm learning about this matter in my brain in a way that physics lacks. We look inside externally, and we see neurons and electricity. We look inside this way, the way we're looking inside, and what do we see? It's unspeakable. Now imagine that you could look inside, the same way you look inside your mind, in this chair, with that kind of perception. Or another person,
Nick, this actually happened to me once. Did I ever tell you this story?
No.
On a certain substance, my vision split in two, so that on one side I was looking at this pixelated world of pure color. On the other side, it was this fuzzy world. And I thought, it isn't just...
Was this with one eye or the field? The field split.
The field split.
Uh-huh.
And I thought to myself, I know about this. This is the vision system splitting in half. So I looked at Galen, and I saw the 3D form of her face, and I asked her to smile, and she smiled, and I felt the feeling of it.
Whoa!
And then I looked at her with the other camera, and it was all raw pixels. But I could see the detail. I had no emotional connection to her, and didn't understand that it was a face. But her eye, I could see the glistening of the liquid on her eye down to the lowest detail. And I talked later with a neuroscience, and they said, "Oh, you separated the vision system into the two components.
Whoa!
And to be an autistic person is to only have the pixels. You don't have the model forming."
Whoa.
Now, what I did with Galen, I realized for a short period of time I was going to have these cameras. I'm going to look inside. So I looked into Galen, into her eyes with the camera, and pictures started to come out, almost like Polaroids and I described these, and I said, there's a man in these long boots in water, and then there's a shape, a whole bunch of people, and there's a white shape. And she said, oh, these are photo album pictures of a photo album I've never shown you before. So I said, okay, now I know that. I'm going to turn the camera inside to me and look into my mind and my past. Well, I got the chance.
Uh-huh.
And immediately in front of me was this shape of this face of a baby with black eyes, very piercing black eyes. Before that, this is what happened before that. I had this experience where, and it must have been one of the most, if this happened to me, it was the most profound experience of my infantitude, which is I had the experience of waking up to 3 dimensions.
Whoa.
So I was in this place, and there were all these vertical slats around me, and I didn't know what they were, and I was sort of groping around, and then suddenly it all went 3D, and I pulled back.
Like those magic pictures where you stare at a while, and all of a sudden
That's right. And the dimension of the world opened up. My mind opened up like a crinkling rose petal opening up. And I floated for a moment outside, and there's a hospital room, and the whole world, the whole planet was there. And that was the coming of vision. It was the coming of the processing of 3D. And I do a lot of 3D stuff, trying to vision the whole solar system. That's my job.
And each of us has had this experience, but we've forgotten it.
Yeah. And the black-eyed baby. Now so I'm desperate for any information the camera can show to help me be a better person or understand how I work. And the black-eyed baby, I was terrified of. This shape, it was a blobby baby just sitting there staring at me. I was terrified of it because of the piercing eyes. And I was like, stop. And I realized it was a mistake. I was adopted, so I was put in with other babies in a hospital for a couple of weeks. I didn't have any contact with my birth mother. And there must have been a baby there, if this is what happened. And I was scared of the face of this other baby. But the mistake I made was that the other baby wasn't being any kind of a threat to me. The baby was simply looking at me. And you know how babies look at you and they see right inside you, and they pull all information out of you, and the eyes of an infant especially. I took that as a threat. But in fact, no, there was no threat. And so from that point on in my life, I always had trouble making eye contact. And I was always afraid. My mother described me, my adoptive mother, as being in my own world and having, like, why don't you, I was in a shell. And I've forever been trying to get out of that shell and connect with people on a vision level. So when I pointed whatever it was, the quantum physics camera
at Galen,
and then at me, I got some useful. So it's been now become a theme of my life, is trying to make contact.
Who's this guy? Claudio Naranjo. He was one of the early psychedelic pioneers. And one of his notions was that when we stare in another person's eye, we connect directly, retina to retina. The light passes from my retina to yours, and the retina is the surface of the brain.
Yeah.
So it's the most intimate thing you can do is to stare into another person's eyes. And they have an exercise called trespasso, the trespass, where you stare at a person, longer than social conventions, and get turned on by that. That's a method.
That might be your physics. That might be a source of what you're trying to do. There are 1,000 ways to get high without drugs, and that's one of them. But it's not. It's still a classical way, Bruce. It doesn't involve any quantum mechanics. It's all rays of light, not waves of light. Right.
But still one we don't play with a lot, because there's still a lot of taboos around looking in each other's eyes.
Yes, there is.
When I was a kid, I lived in Santa Barbara for a while, and it was very open. Then I moved to Philadelphia.
Boy.
I'm walking by kids in the classroom in school, you sort of look at them, and they'll look at you and they say, "Who are you looking at?" Like that, right away. You just don't do that. Or, "You looking at my girl?" Things like that. It was very unnerving, and I realized how key just a simple thing like the eye gaze, like you were talking about, Bruce, how profoundly it connects us, and at the same time how many taboos are around it.
And now that we have most of our eye gaze captured by instant messaging and screens and technology, and we have less and less
built-in cameras on your laptop.
And the reason we're building this hut and we're building the dome and doing it is so we can have intense small group sessions where you look in each other's eyes and you have that presence to fight against the trend, the drug of technology, which is taking away the gaze.
One of the things I wonder about, my cat, when it wants to get my attention, stares right at me, and I wonder sometimes if when it does that to other animals, that there's a telepathic channel open between it and the other animal, and I'm just immune to that, and it's probably saying, "You stupid, you don't even."
They don't know, like the pigs. If you get down low and you look in a pig's eye, it's very human looking, and they're like, "Okay. Why don't you ever connect with me in that way?"
Exactly.
Of course, pigs are olfactory beings. So once somebody who was visiting the pigs bent over, and a pig came around her rear end and sniffed it. I said, don't feel offended. That was a pig having a conversation with you, saying how you been, where you been, what you've been eating.
Where you been, especially, yeah, what you've been eating.
That's right. But the eyes of the pig are very, very human. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's probably a channel that we could learn more about, this telepathic channel through the eyes.
Yeah, and well, certainly when combined with psychedelics, it gets really interesting.
Yes, when combined with psychedelics, you could fall into a person's eyes on psychedelics.
Who hasn't looked in a mirror?
Mirrors.
Right, on that such occasion. So what's that all about? What's the quantum physics behind the infinity of that? No.
Yeah, where do the DMT elves come from? Is that are they real, or are they from the quantum?
Was it a special
machine?
state?
See, those are the questions we could ask if we have this new science. Mm-hmm. We could differentiate between noise and signal with this new science. This new science, by the way, is called quantum tantra. The merging of physics and sensuality in a brand new way. It would be a great Christmas gift for those of you on your list that have everything.
Well, it does seem to me that if this new consciousness is such that we really are more of a turned-on society, and we see God, Goddess, all that is in each other, then how do we create reality with each other? What kind of worlds do we create from that consciousness? And that's where I think your new science really will come to fruition. It's like a new renaissance, a time when we wake up to our true potential in mass. And if not now, when? I mean, we have all the tools, we have relative amount of freedom, and where do we want to take it? And I think we're ready for some breakthroughs. I think we can make the 15th century look like a child's play. With what we know today.
You have to identify or recognize that there are many different personality types, and not all of them will react in the same way to having insight.
That's right.
And enlightenment.
Some might want to conquer this realm rather than just explore it or exploit it or make a profit from it.
Others would want to be creative within it. Others would want to convince everyone else that their version of the realm is the true realm.
Yeah. Well, what was the success of the 15th century in terms of creating the Renaissance? What did they were able to achieve?
They explored. For instance, they got these boats and explored the whole world. I mean, and there were talk about personality types. There's personality types who want to risk everything. You give them this machine, they'll crank it up to full, and they'll go into as far as they can go. The biker types, the real explorers, the Daniel Boone types, who, everyone else is having fun in the hot tubs, and they're out there, in the woods, they're counting the devils that are all around too. That's not my kind of person.
You're the hot tub getting the story.
on the
I'm turning the knobs.
On the Enneagram, you're a number 5, right? The thinker.
The thinker, yes. The thinker.